guys! I wasn't sure if I was going to do a review on Utano Prince-sama Season 2 since I pretty much did the same review a couple years ago where I made up cute nicknames for all the characters, and I basically said that it's a good reverse harem, and if you're a girl and you like reverse harems you should probably watch the show, and I think I've pretty much just abridged what I'm about to say right there. But I do want to do a review on Utano Prince-sama Season 2, if for nothing more than to update the old review, so let's do that, I guess. So Utano Prince-sama Season 2 is a 13-episode show from A1 Pictures, who have brought us such things before, like Sora no Woto and Working and Sword Art Online, and it's directed by Yuko, who has brought us other shows such as Giant Killing, Chrono Crusade, and Loveless. And I'm sure at the mention of Loveless I've got a bunch of friends who are going to jump on this show like no one's business. Based off the visual novel of the same name, the story follows that of Haruka Nanami, an aspiring songwriter. As it would happen in Season 1, she got enrolled into a school that trained budding idols and songwriters, and they would pair together and they would make songs, and you know, everyone got practice and everyone became a better rounded person in the world of idols, I guess. However, the school did enforce one very odd rule, which was that no one was allowed to date anyone. Blasphemy. I don't know if that was supposed to be some sort of reference to Japanese idol culture where idols don't tend to be allowed to date, or at least make it very public, or if it was just some sort of plot device so that they wouldn't have to pick a guy, and you know, you can leave it up to the viewer's imagination. Since it's based off a visual novel, we'll leave it up to the viewer's imagination to see who Haruka got with. However, Haruka and her harem, who we'll talk about in a second, have moved on to bigger and better horizons, and the plot is that they enroll in something called the Master Class. What's the Master Class, you might ask? I would reply with, I'm not so sure. I'm assuming it's sort of like a master's degree, but in terms of songwriting and idols. Explanations are out the window because this show does not do a lot of explaining, to be honest, but we'll go with it. But of course we get the actual plot of this series, which actually has a plot which is quite good. In this series, the characters sort of get an episode each to, you know, show their own development towards, you know, becoming a better idol and working towards something called the Utapri Award. This is an award that's given to a group of hard-working idols, as far as I can tell. What the significance is behind it, I don't think is ever really entirely possibly explained. After the setting in Season 1, which was sort of like a get-to-know-you kind of series that had not a lot of payoff apart from the concert scene at the end, which was actually showed at the beginning of the show, which they did again, thank you by the way A1 Pictures for pretty much spoiling it for me, so cheers. Like I said, for a few episodes it took on this very episodic feeling of following around all of the different cast members of the main male cast, who we're going to get around to soon, and basically just showed them working really hard in their respective fields, I suppose. You know, they were working hard, they were being all diligent and stuff, and they were somehow developing more of a relationship with Haruka in this process. So what I mean by sort of expanding themselves into these different fields of idol culture or whatever, they would often take an episode where they would pick a character and basically put them into a situation of working either on a TV show or a fashion show, or they were doing some photography, or they were in a play or whatever. They would take the character, put them into that situation, and basically just show their hardships working through that, I suppose. It actually set a nice pace for itself, with it basically taking the time to reintroduce us to these characters that we haven't seen in a good few years, maybe 2 years. And I'd honestly kind of forgotten about why I liked the characters that I liked and why I didn't like the characters that I didn't like, so it was really nice to sort of get reacquainted with them in the first 7 or so episodes. It was a really, really good way to get us into the swing of things before it really put on the meat of the series. So the characters, the first one to talk about would obviously be the leader of the harem, Haruka Nanami, our protagonist, who I remember a lot of people not really liking because she looked like she was blind. Is a lot of what I hear, to be honest. I personally find her to be a touch more likeable than a lot of other main females when it comes to these harem sort of shows. She has personality, which is a good thing. She has aspirations, she has dreams, she has a goal, you know. She is pretty much a really well-rounded character in those terms. However, it really felt like we as the watchers or the viewers weren't supposed to project ourselves onto this character like a lot of shows tend to do with harems, like reverse harems, normal harems. We're supposed to put ourselves into that person's point of view or something, because usually they're based off of visual novels, which makes a lot of sense, I guess. However, we don't really find out a lot about Haruka. Anything that we did find out about, I have totally forgotten about, mainly because the first series was a very long time ago, And this series pretty much learnt nothing about her. It was all about the male cast, which I guess is fine, but it would have been nice to, you know, maybe be a bit more reacquainted with Haruka herself. But there isn't a lot more to her. She is a very ditzy and klutzy character which can be so annoying to watch at times. Of course, the real sell with this show comes from the male cast, or the idols that she is working with. So we'll start with Redhead. He's the very sort of happy-go-lucky type of guy who doesn't seem to have, like, emotions other than happy in his emotional vocabulary. He's kind of a joy to watch, I'm not gonna lie. He always brings optimism, he's a very bubbly and nice character to watch, I suppose. But on the opposite end of the scale, we're going to talk about Amazing Grace next, who for the most part of Season 1 was a quiet and stoic character who somewhere in between Season 1 and Season 2 actually started giving a shit about more people. He didn't do that much in Season 2 until like the last few episodes, and I was actually really disappointed because he was one of my favourite characters the last time I remember watching it. Along the same lines of that, we have the character Shit Hair, and no, I will not take that back. He's very similar in the fact that he doesn't really have a lot of personality. He's the silent type who's very into like traditional Japanese stuff, and he doesn't really have a lot to him. In fact, his episode, I suppose, was mainly based around the group as a whole and how they could help him further himself, and it was not about him, it was about the group, which was kind of disappointing because I would like to like this character. Next we have quite the creepy bishounen who is Open Collar. He's very flirtatious and he has, you know, super creepy nicknames for Haruka like Little Lamb. I cannot tell you how strange and weird I find that. And he's personally my least favourite because he just seems so shallow and again quite bland aside from his rather forward personality. Moving on to one of my personal favourites of the series, we have Black Nails, who again suffers from being one of those characters that they've obviously put in the backseat to make room for the more prevalent characters in this show, I guess. Which could actually be said for most of the cast, but he is the most hilarious character in this show. He's got such personality. I don't know why he's my favourite, he just is. He's really funny. Episode 3 of Season 1, I think, was my highlight for him. Moving on to the last of the main characters from last season, we have Natsuki. Mean Glasses. I was doing so well with the nicknames. He's another cheerful character who says some really weird things sometimes. He's almost childlike in the fact that he's so joyful, but he has a bit of a different side to him in certain circumstances, I suppose. The last character to talk about is actually arguably one of the bigger focuses of the series, and that is Cecile, who is the only character who is like legitimately princely. He's got this really adorable personality with a really, really well-matched voice to go with it, and he actually seems like a foreigner, which was strange. I don't know that I can explain why I liked him as much as I did, but I did. I found his personality to really personally click quite well with me. Maybe it's because he's a foreigner, maybe I just have a thing for foreigners. Apparently that is actually a thing. So everything switched around to me. I was actually really adamant that Sho and Tokyo are my favourites from last season, but they totally fell to the wayside, kind of in favour of Cecile. I can't come up with an appropriate nickname for Cecile that doesn't sound mildly racist. So, if anyone does have any ideas, I need a nickname. I need a nickname for him. See, this is the problem with this series, I guess. A lot of the characters, which are the main focus of this series, did fall to the wayside in favour of their new addition to the main cast. And it kind of happened last season too, where you would pick out your favourites and they would just drop off the face of the earth for the remainder of the show until the last episode. So I'd actually say that the characters are a weak point because they have this huge cast and not a lot of time to, you know, really get you involved with them, and, you know, it's supposed to be a show about the characters realistically. It's not supposed to be about the plot. It's supposed to be about all these bishounen, not enough bishounen. I suppose another main point of it could maybe be the music, since this is technically a music show. So the OST is pretty okay. It's just mostly there sort of fitting around the atmosphere and fitting the mood for the most part. But they do have character songs with montages and dance routines and awful mouth movements from the characters. But they're pretty okay, and that's really the best I can do with them, because a lot of the time when the lyrics translate to English, they end up sounding like the biggest load of cheese you have ever heard in your entire life. But there are parts of the music that they absolutely did get right. being the opening and the ending. Let's talk about the opening first, which is a song by Mamoru Miyano called Canon, and I like the fact, this is just a little thing, but I really like the fact that they decided to use a song from someone who is a part of the main cast. And it's a really good song. And the last one being Maji Love 2000%, don't know Japanese. And this is a song sung by the entire cast of Uta no Prince-sama. Though the awkward animated dance routines and hip thrusts leave a little bit to be desired, the song is actually pretty good and fits pretty well with the entire show, because it's very pop, I suppose. It encompasses pretty much everything about pop music that 6-year-old me would have loved. And that's why it's so great. That's why it's a really, really, really good song. But honestly, there isn't a lot more to say about Uta no Prince-sama. But honestly, there isn't a lot more to say about this show. Uta no Prince-sama has some truly, truly amazing moments, if for nothing more than it being so bad in parts. But if it's in terms of being funny, or having really well put together character songs, it does really have a lot of positives behind it, and I would absolutely recommend it to a certain group of people. I don't think, I've mentioned this before, I do not think I would recommend it to guys, per se, because, you know, I don't think guys would have much of an investment in, you know, this big cast of males, which is fine. There might be some guys that are into that, and that's absolutely cool. You might love this show. Honestly, I would really recommend this show to women who really just want a good reverse harem to watch and enjoy. It's a really short watch, it's great. But if you are a guy that is interested in watching this show, but really don't have much interest in guys, I suppose, try Drinking Game. That's my suggestion. Lastly, if you are interested in watching this show, it is available for streaming on Crunchyroll, so you got no excuse. Thank you for watching, take care, and I will see you guys soon.